All right, I guess Pate, on to you, man. Talk a little bit about airlines. What you got for us?
All right. Yes, as our resident frequent traveler, coming to you live from the Rocky Mountains as we speak. Fortunate enough to be up here for a couple of weeks. I wanted to talk to you all about some news that actually broke yesterday and then today, some follow-on news that United Airlines on Sunday actually eliminated their change fees from most of their domestic flights. That is huge. That's a huge moneymaker for United. And then what's even makes this even to a bigger story is that Delta and American Airlines also followed suit just only a day later. Um, I don't know about y'all. This brings back memories of when the dominoes started to fall, when Robinhood finally forced platforms like E-Trade, like Charles Schwab, like TD Ameritrade to eventually cut their commissions to zero per trade. Um, I'll be curious to hear what y'all think on that. But yeah, just some other setting the stage and facts on this. So American actually went further and cut their change fees on their shorter international flights beyond what Delta and United did. That they don't these aren't going to extend to the basic economy fares, aka not the fares you us three flew over to London and Europe on 2 years ago, where we literally had to pray that our flights didn't get canceled and prayed that our seats would actually be decent when we got on those planes. That American and United passengers in the future are actually going to be allowed to fly standby on earlier flights with seat availability. Going into the future, it's going to be, I believe, American before United on that. And that, yeah, these are really big monetary hits to the airlines. American and Delta each was $800 million in revenue alone, each of them, plus over that figure just in 2019 alone. And United booked over $600+ million in change fees over the past. That's a 5 times increase over the past decade. So I'm curious to hear what y'all's thoughts are on the elimination of those change fees on the on most of the domestic flights, and then for American the shorter international flights, considering that air travel is still down 70%.
I mean, as a consumer, I think I speak for everyone when I say this is very exciting news.
Yes, and that's where I was like, I was ecstatic. I
Right.
fly Delta a fair amount, even obviously more so pre-pandemic. But I've gone on my second plane flight now since pandemic, and I felt safer doing that than Justin, you and I beach volleyball league earlier this year. But
Right.
I think it was a welcome relief as a consumer of not knowing that these were going to expire and you're going to start getting ding 200 Benjamins or two Benjamins every time that you something came up and you needed to push your flight back 3 hours.
Right. I mean, it's feeding into the whole uncertainty of the situation we're in right now, and hopefully it stays for a while going forward. I mean, I'm hesitant. I've been hesitant to get on any flights recently. I mean, for multiple reasons, but to book anything, well in advance, because you don't know what the situation is going to be like, you know,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even 8 months from now, because you don't want to have to pay those change fees, and it's worthless to even try to schedule a flight that far in advance right now. This could change a lot of that for confidence levels of consumers. I think
So
it's going to reflect heavily on the value.
yeah, are you thinking of like the flights that are a couple months out? Because the change fees have been waived since March, I believe. But like they were set, they all were set to expire, and I guess they still were. And
Eventually.
eventually, and then something that's curious is our home state airline of Southwest Airlines has never had change fees this entire time. Um,
Yeah.
there are obviously different reasons to fly Southwest over an American, Delta, or United. I self-admittedly am a Delta Medallion member, and I'm now very biased, having flown multiple airlines over the years. Um, but yeah, this like you just said, this gives some relief going forward. But like it's going to be the airlines are going to have to find a way to make up for this nearly $1 billion loss. We were just talking about Zoom. This entire total market of ancillary fees was almost what Zoom does in a year of revenue. That's how much it was worth, nearly $2 to $3 billion. Um, Ryan, what are your thoughts on this? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I think airlines are just kind of lost and they're trying to find their way at this point. they're trying to find any way to attract business, and
Yep,
this
fully agree.
seems to be one tactic to try and get people on those planes. I know they're not filling the middle seats still for, I believe, is it all airlines at this point?
I know Delta isn't. I don't believe Southwest still is. American and United are, and I don't know this for a fact, but that's why it pays to not have as bad of a balance sheet as, as the airlines that currently are still blocking off the middle seats.
Yeah, I mean it does kind of come down to those balance sheets, right? Like with the decisions they make, but when something like this happens, I think everybody has to follow suit. And it seems to be, I mean, I'm not very picky with what airline I fly. It just always comes down to what's the best deal. I mean, there's a couple that I won't fly just because of leg room issues, but like Frontier and Spirit or any of
Hey,
those.
Pate, do you deal with that one?
You know,
I
Sorry,
tried
man.
one time and I literally couldn't fit in the plane.
I can say I've never had this problem on the plane, except United direct charter flights. I did have issues with those. Even I had been down on those planes, so I can't imagine what y'all had to do, or the Texas A&M basketball team had to deal with on
Oh,
those
God.
planes.
But no, I think, I mean, this is interesting. It's a dynamic situation with the airlines just trying to get more business, but I mean, they're still in trouble. I mean, it's all dependent on COVID. It's another opportunity though. I mean, these stocks been beaten up because of COVID. They're going to come back at some point. Just continue to look to see, I mean, the trends with COVID. If it's getting better, then these stocks are going to get better. If there's positive vaccine news, they're going to also rise. I mean, just continue to watch out. But yeah, with these changes, I think it's just to try to attract business, in my opinion. I don't really know why else they would do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think even less about it from a stock standpoint, from just a customer loyalty standpoint, when that's what I think they're going for, because they're giving up nearly $1 billion of revenue per year. Or if you're United, closer to half a billion, the other two closer to $1 billion. Um, I think that they've realized that retaining their customer base is going to be the most valuable thing for them to do in the next 2 to 5 years, waiting for travel to rebound, especially business travel. Which is that's the reason I used Delta, that was what was paying for the majority of my tickets. And then I became a medallion member through those flights. Um, and that's what I think. It's almost, I don't think it's just a race to the bottom, like say Grubhub, Postmates, Uber Eats, food delivery price war per se, but I think you're going to see each of the airlines trying to jockey for position, at least the major airlines, not necessarily your favorite, Ryan, the Spirit or Frontiers of, or the Irish Frontier of Ryanair. But yeah, Justin's got fun memories of that plane. But
PTSD there.
yeah. I remember the flight attendant looked at me like I was an idiot because I asked for a water on that plane, not knowing any better that I was going to get
How dare
charged
you.
for that. But I digress. Yeah, I think you're going to see them start to jockey for positioning on not only customer loyalty, but ways that in American did analysis, ways that they can start to offer upgrades, especially for the lower fares, to try to get people to entice them to book those lower fares in the aspirational, oh, I might get upgraded, and that's half of the fares I book. I'm hoping to get upgraded, and I did on my flight up here to the mountains, and I'm hoping to on the way back. Some of that's just because of the empty planes, but that's how I've been operating the past 2 years anyways.
Right. It's a tough deal, man. Like, I'm sure they're trying to find that balance for sure and trying everything out and just, throwing stuff at a wall and see what sticks. Do you think that they're going to maybe maintain this kind of treatment even past the pandemic? I mean, it
I
might be one of
think
those things where to stay competitive, one might, stick with it. And so it makes the other ones follow suit because it sets them apart, or could set them apart if they don't stick
Yeah,
with it.
yeah. I think going back to like the the major stock brokerage didn't get rid of commission trades until they had to. The major airlines didn't get rid of change fees until they had to because one of their main competitors did. Um, I think that it whatever's going to justify a competitive advantage, even if that means them taking what is now perceived as a loss, but that might not have been perceived as a loss 15 years ago, in the names of customer loyalty and getting that recurring revenue. I think they're going to deem that as more valuable, at least in the short term. We'll see going forward, and let's pray they don't come back. I think airlines are one of those industries that is kind of extraordinary how much they're able to get away with price. I don't want to say gouging. At some points, that definitely is the case, but just price inflexibility and how the consumer and the customer is not the beneficiary a lot of the times in terms of airfare bookings, airfare refunds, change fees, all of these, just upgrading your seat. You're basically just, they're charging you an arm and a leg to pay for luxury, for privacy. And then we'll see going forward. I'm really hoping it doesn't end up having to pay for just 6 feet of space in the plane.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to figure out ways to make their buck. I mean, there's some really interesting like articles and even books on, the evolution of flying from, whenever it started, I guess 50s and 60s when it was, commercialized. And then throughout the years of, luxury became less and less of a thing and more of a huge, burden on the consumer, people that couldn't afford it. I wonder if we shift a little bit more towards that to, like you said, keep customer loyalty. It'll be interesting. Or if they build it into the price of, that they're not able to charge the change fees, if they do a little bit of price gouging and add it to the price that's built in with the ticket to cover that small amount of loss. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next year or so.
Yep. Surely you can't be serious though, and stop calling me Shirley. That's an airplane quote. Next segment.
Best thing I would say on that is Buffett dumped those stocks, so why don't you?
We are not giving suggestions, Ryan. We are not.
No, but we can. I think that's fair to say for young
safe,
to watch out on these. These could be perceived as value traps.
Absolutely.
Airlines make the majority of their money on business travel. It's gonna be a while before business travel has come back to pre-pandemic levels. That's the macroeconomic advice we will say for that.
There you go.
Well,